Y'all, this one here is dedicated to hunting with Elk Decoys. If you listen to our show, you have possibly heard us talk here and there about using an elk decoy. And truly, y'all, in the right situation, there ain't no better way to pull a bull into a setup than to convince that booger he sees exactly what he's been hearing. It can be amazing. But just what is the right situation? Well, y'all, we're going to answer that question and a whole lot more. Today, it's an in-depth look at using elk decoys, tips, tricks, along with the when, where, why, and how. That discussion, our listeners' shout-outs, and questions from our awesome ElkBros mailbox. So, my friends, pull up a chair, adjust your volumes just right, and welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunting.
Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunting, brought to you by ElkBros.com, with your host Gilbert Ornelas and elk hunting coach Joe Gilly. You want to hunt elk? They live to hunt elk. Their goal is to share with you what they have learned grinding it out for over 35 seasons, doing what they love. So come on into camp and set a spell. Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunters.
Hello there, everyone. If it's your first time with us, glad to have you. I hope you enjoy the show. And as always, for those blue collar hunters following our show and grinding it out with us every week, welcome back to Elk Camp. I'm Gilbert Ornelas, the host of your show, coming to you from Spring, Texas. And joining me today, we've got all of our ElkBros coaches in the house from Cimarron, New Mexico. That's right. We got the legend R.C. Knox in the house. Our coaches, WWJGD, Joe Gilly is in the house, and the ninja, Leroy Chavez. And y'all, we have a special guest pulling up to the campfire today who might just know a little thing or two about decoys. How about a warm ElkBros welcome to our decoy-making brother from Colorado. He's the owner of the Ultimate Predator gear and a columnist for Bow Hunter Magazine and a host himself for the Hoyt Bow Hunting Podcast. Mr. Danny Farris is in the house.
Yeah. Boy, you guys get hard up for guests.
Welcome, Danny. Sorry for all the technical difficulties, my brother.
It's all right, man. Like I said before we got on here, I was just glad somebody other than me was having difficulties too. I was going to feel terrible if I held you guys up single-handedly.
Oh my gosh, it was like dealing with somebody in the old folks home, man. I'm telling you. Trying to get
like I tell them out in the Elkwoods, Jesus Christ, it's like dealing with my kids. Joe was trying to nurse me back, and man, it was really just a stupid part. Bad data input on my part, man. It's just like he said, oh, it ain't the computer. It's just user error. He was 100% right. And I was saying all kinds of bad things about this computer, but it really wasn't the computer. It was just.
Well, we can tie that in with elk hunting, dudes. How many times guys blame it on the elk, blame it on the weather, blame it on the bow. They miss a shot right. Because, and it ain't none of that. It's all user error, man. You know,
I hear between the two eyeballs and ears.
That's 6 inches. Danny, man, I was just telling you a few minutes ago, I cannot believe we haven't had you on the show before. I do know it's video and you know, we don't want people uglying it up too much. You know?
Yeah. I can understand, but you know, I'm not too fearful looking at the four of you. You know, I feel like I fit right in.
Yeah.
Fit right in, didn't you?
We kill a lot of elk, Danny, but we ain't winning no beauty pageants.
No, yeah, that's right.
That's the Fu Manchu doctor over there, Mr. Elk himself, Joe Gilly, trying to grow him something that's going to take him 10 years to grow.
I can understand.
That good Indian blood, huh, Joe?
Yeah. Well, actually, I've been keeping it at this length, man.
You have? Okay.
What you call the gray shadow.
The gray shadow.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, y'all get there, but you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because R.C. Knox
already there.
R.C. Knox has had that mustache since he was 14. He ain't cut it since he was 14. I just want you to
believe it.
No, I haven't. Yeah.
I thought that was Tom Selleck for a minute.
Just a minute.
He trims it well.
You know, Danny, I can remember talking to you, shoot, man, when you first purchased Predator. Man,
Yeah.
uh, I can remember that transition phase, you coming in, and I mean, from the very beginning, you have just been awesome because we love your daggum decoys, man. I mean,
Yeah.
if
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, I bought this thing back in 2019, and you guys were, some of the first guys that I remember communicating with after buying it. And, I was a user of these things before buying it.
Right.
I've got a pretty cool story of exactly, how I got to know these decoys. I've been a decoy geek for a long time, way before these decoys. And I mean, going back to the Mel Duttons, the hard plastic Mel Duttons, and
the
making
fold-out Duttons, yep.
making my own decoys out of different things. I've known for a long time how effective they were. And sometime back, probably in the late 2000s, I had developed I took another company's turkey decoy, a 2-dimensional turkey decoy, and I cut a hole in it, and I attached it to my bow, and I went out and crawled into the middle of a group of turkeys, and I was just
amazed,
mind blown.
Right.
And I went to that company, and I had a video and showed them what I did to that decoy and said, guys, you need to make this decoy,
Right.
And they just kind of rolled their eyes at me and whatnot. And then in 2015, all of a sudden, this little company here right out of Colorado Springs, my backyard, all of a sudden comes out with this bow mounted decoy. And that decoy, when I first saw it, I said, that's my decoy. You know what I mean? That's what I was making. That's what I was begging those guys to make. And they never did it. And so, I was an early adopter of them, and had some pretty incredible experiences with them over the next few years. And then when the company came up for sale, I was, they told me they were selling it, and they had
only like a rat on a
breaking
Cheeto,
down.
huh?
I said, yeah, what do you want for that deal? So that's how it all went down.
Oh, man. And, I know we're going to be talking elk, but I have people tell me all the time, how, they struggle hunting antelope and blah, blah. And I'm like, have you tried this? Because it is so much fun. And I mean, it's amazing how close you get in those boogers. It's hard sometimes not to be laughing while it's all going on,
Well, the biggest, one of the ironic things about antelope is it's one of the decoys that works the best out of all of our stuff. But a lot of the antelope seasons start in early to mid-August before the antelope are ready. You know what I mean? Because decoying, you can use decoys in different capacities year round. But if you're talking really the good decoy season, and when you're potentially bringing animals to you and doing all kinds of neat things like that, that's a rut game.
Right.
And I don't care whether we're talking the elk rut, the mule deer rut, the antelope rut. And a lot of these bow hunters are going out there during August before these antelope have started to rut at all. And they're trying to do these things with them, just approach them, walking out there toward them and stuff. And then they booger, and the first thing they think is, well, this thing doesn't work worth a crap.
Right.
Well, it's just, man, you got to find the right antelope in the right mood that time of year. When it gets closer to the rut, as soon as they start losing their minds in the rut, is when that gets really fun.
Well, I knew that it was going to be something special because Chav and I, we were at a shoot in Clayton, New Mexico, and it was antelope season at the time at this 3D shoot, and we decided, man, we were going to go out and do some hunting. And I was like, I wonder how well, because we were on, I think it was like target 26, Chav, when we had that antelope target out there.
Right.
And we were like, I don't think they'll miss it in the evening, man. We'll bring it back before the morning. And we took that antelope 3D decoy out there, and literally I was like, carrying it underneath like this, and had a buck come right into it, and I'm trying to get Chav to shoot, and Chav doesn't shoot, and this daggum thing's out like 50 yards. For most of our shooters today, this is it's just a tapping down, right? But I'm sitting here doing this, and he's trying to walk around us, and we're doing this little shift as I'm trying to keep it in front of us, and he's behind me trying to get shots, and I'm laughing. I think he sent 6 arrows at that booger, man.
All the quiver was gone. I'm out.
Right.
I'm out.
Yeah. When they're rutting and that stuff, it's a blast, man. So
it sure can be. I've got one of the old Carry Light used to make a 3-dimensional buck antelope decoy. And it got discontinued a long time ago, and I'd love to start making one again. But gosh, when you look into the expense of bringing that style of decoy to market, it's significant. You better know that you've got a good market for them and that you got a product that's going to work out right. But that old antelope 3D buck decoy, there's been so many times, even when it's not in the rut, like if you are hunting antelope early prior to the rut, I've always found that if they come over the hill into a pasture they're planning on going into or something like that, a field they're planning on going into, and you're already there, a lot of times you're golden. They're going to come join up with the other antelope that are there. They're just going to, a lot of times they'll come running at you. Yeah. And I've used that 3-dimensional antelope decoy and just set it out there and then slapped one of our antelope bow mounted decoys, our stalker decoys, on the bow and just sat down next to it like a bedded antelope.
Right.
And one little tip that I'd give everybody is when I'm doing that, I wear a white t-shirt.
Okay.
And I have a white t-shirt on behind that bow mounted decoy. And when antelope see something white low to the ground, get a flash of it, they assume it's antelope just like we do. And that little system right there has worked out really well for me, pulling antelope in prior to the rut. And then during the rut, it's really stupid,
Yeah, it becomes fun. I mean, you do the same thing if people want to check out. I mean, because you guys even use the hog decoy, dude, but the turkey decoys with your run and gun system that you do is that is just killer, man. I mean, just unbelievable.
Yeah, we just last night I took a buddy of mine, a former NFL player named Josh Walker, awesome guy, lives up here in Colorado. He went out turkey hunting with me last night, and that was the first time he ever tried using a stalker decoy, for turkey hunting. And he's a turkey hunting fanatic. He hunts them all over the country. And we had these 2 jakes come in 10 yards in front of us, and they just wouldn't leave. They were camped out on our little wind drifter hen out in front of us, and we had a full conversation. And I am poking out, filming this stuff, and Josh is just like, I can't believe this. And then we end up having a tom come in a little bit later. He killed a really nice tom, but he told me, he said, dude, I've killed Osceolas, Easterns, Rios. The only one I don't have is my Goulds. And he said, I've done it all over the country, and that is the coolest interaction I've ever had, because it's like they're just hanging out with us, like, we're seeing like real-time turkey life. It was a lot of fun.
I've done the whole process you have of going through the different things and the different decoys. Shoot, I think, wasn't it Carl RC that had that? He created that big, like, cow type decoy.
Yeah, I'm the one that made it, and we used it. Yeah.
It was huge.
A moo cow or a cow elk?
Moo cow.
Moo cow.
Yeah.
The only problem that we had, and we were kind of curious about it, is how that cow backed up all the way up that hill.
Sideways.
Moonwalking cow.
Yeah.
And it didn't bother them.
Yeah.
They just look up every once in a while and look at it.
A lot of fun, man. So tonight, we're going to, we had a caller, one of our listeners actually, that sent an email in that says, you guys talk about decoys, Kyle Schaefer, and he sent this in. So you talk about them. I've heard it here and there. He said, but I've never really heard anybody talk in depth about elk hunting with decoys. So that's when I was like, man, if people are asking, we're going to do, and I couldn't think of anybody else that, to join us better than you, because yeah, I mean, you make decoys now, but you've gone the process. You've seen everything, just like I have. Everything that I've done is pure experience, all of the good, the bad, the mistakes, the wins, all of that has happened, and things that we can share with people so that they don't have to go through the same thing. So thank you very much for joining us tonight. I know it kind of it was a technical deal, but we're going to have a blast tonight, bud. So and we've got this ElkBros mailbox that's getting ready to happen here. I want you to join right in with it. And I want you to start thinking too, because when we do our shout outs, we're going to let you give a shout out to your hometown too. All right, boss?
All right.
And Danny, before we go any further, what is your podcast called?
Yeah.
Hoyt Bow.
The Hoyt Bow Hunting Podcast.
And do y'all do it
Okay.
weekly, Danny, or y'all do it monthly, or
You know what? I wish I could say that we were on a better schedule. We try to complete, one a week, but
Gotcha.
there's certain parts of the year where we're doubling up on, and trying to get some kind of put in the hopper
Yeah.
to be able to bring out during those times where some of us disappear into the woods for a month at a
Sure.
time.
Especially during
So-
turkey season.
Oh,
elk
well,
season, yeah.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
between show season and hunting season, spring, fall, there's a lot of time where you're not in the office being able to do things like that.
Well, that's actually what's kept us away as a group. We've been doing some things with some listeners and, some people that have been telling their stories about their hunts and stuff, like strictly because show season and all of us
Oh yeah,
different things
It's-
make it really, really tough. So
it's nonstop.
Why don't we get over here to our ElkBros mailbox? Travis Chabo, I guess from Greenville, North Carolina, sent in a question.
Yep, he sure did. He says, my question for the group is, in early September season and with possibly dry and warmer weather, is it better to take an elk in the later afternoon versus early morning for fear of losing meat to spoilage, especially if I'm hunting solo this year? I shot an elk at 9 a.m. and watched it expire, but took a couple of hours. Did not want to bump it, then felt we were on the clock to get it processed and off the mountain. Before I continue, I'm just going to say, you have a limited opportunity when you're hunting elk. I would hunt morning and night and worry about that later. But anyway,
The ninja spoke.
would it be better if given an equal opportunity to wait until the afternoon, early evening, while in their beds to shoot and harvest, than work on breaking it down and hanging it overnight? Obviously, if you had a choice,
I pass bulls up and kill them that afternoon all the time.
Yeah, right.
All the time.
Yeah, we wait on them.
Yeah, right.
We wait on them whenever they want to die.
I'm going to save my wristwatch.
Yeah.
Hey, Travis, we're busting your chops a little bit.
Yes, a little bit.
Because the thing is, man, it's
Kill that son of a gun, Travis.
Yeah.
just
Don't
not
worry
giving-
about the mule going blind, son. Just load the wagon.
Yeah.
You know?
Because honestly, dude, the whole thing about killing it in the morning and then having the day and worrying about it, the same thing can happen at night.
Definitely,
Just
warm at night.
just get an animal on the ground and then deal with the thing from there, man.
And
I would
another thing
not.
about putting an animal down in the evening too, Joe. You got to deal with predators. So if you can't get it hung and stuff like that, now you got.
Sometimes
predators
you
to
can't
deal with.
track it because you're worried about bumping it. You're in the dark,
Right.
you can't see the thing, and then, like you said, a predator gets on it or something like that. Or
My
by the
first
time-
bull I ever killed, we had to leave him overnight.
you can walk circles around that booger trying to locate it sometimes at night.
That's
too,
right.
So, yeah, dude. I don't think it's number one. Don't worry about having a choice.
Yeah.
Take the opportunities that you're given, kill that elk, and then get that meat off the bone, get it into the shade, find it down a lower area. I mean, once you get it off the bone and hang it in the shade, it's immediately going to start cooling it down anyway. Even if it's hot outside, here in New Mexico, it's going to be 10, 15 degrees cooler in the shade. And once that air starts getting on, it's going to cool that meat down and gets it, it's off that bone, or you've got it slit to let that part of it collect and some air, and it's going to help it from not spoiling. But, I don't think I've ever in 42 years said, when I had an opportunity, I'm going to back off and try to kill him tonight.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, you got
Now,
to
when they
take
give me the opportunity, they getting shot, brother. And we'll worry, but like I said, we'll worry about the, loading the wagon after we get the booger down. I mean, RC and I killed one in a pretty bad location up in Colorado, and it took us a long time to get that elk meat off the mountain, man.
Oh,
It
yeah.
really did. We had to wait for the cavalry to come in, and I mean, it was half the day getting him off the mountain. And I'm gonna tell you, brother, that was some of the best elk meat I ever ate, and it was warm. It wasn't super cold. I mean, it was warm during
But
that.
we took
afternoon.
care of it. We deboned
did.
it. And
We
got it in the
deboned it,
shade
and we put it in the shade, and I mean, it was a long pack out and back. And you've got a Cole Wilkes in your group, you don't have no problem. But at the end of the day, Big Cole he can go up and down the mountain 30 times. But at the end of the day, I mean, that it was warm, but we got it deboned. We put it in cheesecloth. I always carry the stuff in my pack to make that happen. And we had our packs down at the bottom too, with our frame packs and cheesecloth in it. So that made it a lot easier, just be prepared for success.
Yeah, I've got a suggestion that he might find value in.
Yes,
I've done a lot of backpack hunting where every time we killed an elk, it was going to be we had to be very careful with how we took care of the meat, because we were far enough back in to where if you were taking a couple of trips, it was going to be a little while.
yes.
And what I started doing is I always carry a little extra parachute cord in my pack, more than I need. Parachute cord is kind of like duct tape.
right.
There's certain things you always need to have with you. As soon as I get one killed up there, a lot of times, especially if I'm by myself and I know I'm going to have to take a couple different trips, and these might be 3-hour trips, they might be, big trips. I build a little hanging station. I'll go find a decent log that I can hang between two trees in some kind of little,
exactly what we did.
thing that has some shade. And now you can tell me, you guys might do it a little bit different way, but what I do, personally, I feel like getting that hide off of there is the first and foremost. And then before I even start deboning, I take the quarters over there and I hang them up with parachute cord, all 4 quarters from this hang that I just created. And then I take the back straps out and flip them over
the top.
that hole as well.
Yep.
And then I debone from right there while they're hanging. And it's super easy to do it.
Gravity's helping you.
And exactly. And then, it's a process. It takes a little while, but because that stuff's hanging and it's not laying on the ground, that air is able to move all the way around. And just like Joe said, regardless of whether, some of it slips into the sunshine or not, or whether it can be 75, 80, 85 degrees outside. If the air is moving around that meat, you're going to be okay. If you leave that laying on the ground or laying with hide on it or something like that, that's when you're going to get the rotten stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, you want it cooling out as quick as you can, man, and getting the hide off, deboning it. I mean, that's super important, and cooling it out. I mean, I can't tell you how many times we've done exactly what you said, Mr. Danny, is make you find you one of them little dead logs and find 2 pines that are up there and lash
That's
them
right.
to it, and then start throwing your lomo and your neck meat over the top of it and just let it cool out. And I mean, and then, like you said, start, digging that stuff off the bone, that gravity.
And if you can't
easy.
find one and can get a pole across like that, a lot of times these pine trees have limbs underneath of it and it automatically shades that. So you can just put it on some of those limbs, hang it underneath. It's going to be in the shade. It keeps it out of the sun, and sometimes you can even worry because your animal, by the time you find it's been laid in the sun, sometimes they end up dying in the sun. And you get there and all of a sudden the skin's separating out from the meat because he's bloating up on the inside. Don't freak out too much about that. Just get that hide off and get to the meat. And I think he had a second part that we pretty much answered.
Yeah, you pretty much answered it.
Except for what bone soured meat smells like. And,
it'll be pretty evident.
yeah, and you'll see a greening, you'll get a little bit of a slime, and you'll be able to smell it when it's in there. And it doesn't, when you have clean meat, it has that smell of just that clean meat. When you look in there and you start to see something greening, you start to get a smell on the inside of it, it's pretty evident to the nose. Well, it is to me. I got a nose like this, right? So,
like Joe said, if you get that meat off the bone and you get it in some shade, it's going to last a long time, man.
Yeah.
Even so, I killed my bull, and we left him lay overnight, and he didn't die right away. He died. It took him a long while. I feel bad about that, but we did the right thing. We knew we had one lung and liver, and we backed out on him. And he was 13 hours, Joe?
Yeah.
And when we found him, he was still pliable. I mean, that's how he hadn't been dead long, So, but when we got on him, man, he'd been there for 13 hours. Cool. It was cool outside, probably in the mid 40s at night. And so it was cool. But I mean, at the end of the day, we had to leave him overnight for 13 hours. And man, it's some of the best meat I ever had,
Well, but to what I was saying earlier, that elk we left him 13 hours. He hadn't been dead a half hour. There was no Rigo, nothing. It was a liver shot on him. Had we moved in on him at night, that animal gets jumped. We probably never find that animal. So, the evening can be, there's a lot of things about the night I'm not too a fan of in the evening, man. Just because of that. And just because you kill it in the evening doesn't mean you're not going to be packing out in the daylight the next day, because if you're in there a ways, like Danny said, if you're in there 3 miles, by the time you get one out, you get back, you're looking at a trip, man. And so now you're doing another one, and it's going to be, hopefully it's in the morning, but I'm telling you, most likely you're going to rest up after that first haul. By the time you get started, you're back in the sun again. So, you just got to deal with the situation you have. You're going to have an encounter. You're going to have an opportunity. You had better capitalize on every opportunity you're given. So don't let any of that other stuff. You're overthinking it just a little bit right there.
Yeah. Joe, you remember the time when the boys killed a bull, and then you, me, and Brendan and Chav went and killed a bull that night, and they had been all day handling all that meat and everything, and up half the night from the bull that y'all had. And then we come in there about 8 o'clock, and they're like, "Oh man, how'd it go?" And we're like, "Well, hope y'all ready to go again, because we got another one." It was so bad, Danny. They were falling asleep on my bull. It's like 2 a.m, and it's in a really bad place. It's like 2 a.m. Manano's asleep on my bull while we're quartering him, man.
That was four bulls down in 4 days on a country elk hunt, man, on public land. Man. So, and that's work. And
oh man,
heck yeah, buddy,
that is some serious work, and
yes, sir.
It is a lot harder now that I'm at the age that I'm at now than it was 15 years ago.
Yeah. Spoken from somebody who knows it. You right about that.
Oh.
Travis, I hope that helps you out, bud. And look, our crowd, man, you got to have some thick skin around us. We like to have a little fun, but in all seriousness,
kill them, baby.
We jab at it a little bit, but it's a great question, and I think other people might be thinking that same thing, and that's why I want to make sure that the first thing that you understand and that you get out of this is you don't miss an opportunity. Number one.
Exactly.
Okay? So
exactly.
There's a lot of hunts that I've been on where the entire, let's say it's a 7-day hunt or something like that, and you hunt your butt off. And if you get one opportunity, this is not all elk hunts,
right?
But on most public land, do-it-yourself elk hunts, where you're hunting a place that isn't just loaded with elk or something like that, if you get one good opportunity on that hunt, that was a good hunt.
Absolutely.
yeah.
Exactly.
And you better be ready to take advantage of that opportunity whenever it comes.
That's right.
I think that's the one thing that I was so proud of our group is that when I talk about those 4 bulls in 4 days, that wasn't because we were covered up in elk. It was because guys were extremely efficient at finishing on the single opportunity that they had, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, you've got to make sure you take advantage. You got to take
Oh, that was a grind, brother. I mean, we were all grinding every day. I mean, it was a super grind. So, yeah, like you said, for him, I hope he understands that, you know, it's all tongue in cheek when we're kind of razzing him a little bit. But at the end of the day, brother, don't pass up any opportunities to kill a bull, man.
Yep.
I mean, dang what time it is. Dark 30, you know, long as it's legal shooting light, brother, and you get the opportunity, get it done, man. And go get the cavalry afterwards, or, you know, just work it out yourself and do the best you can. But I promise you, you want to use every opportunity you have, man.
All right, let's see some listeners.
Well,
here.
guys, you know what time it is. It's time for the Elk Bros shout out. If you're new to our show, this is just shout outs to our followers, to a few cities with the most listeners topping our charts this week, Joe.
Yep, get us started, Chav.
Okay, this top listening city is the gateway to the Carolinas and the Atlantic coast. It is halfway between New York City and Miami via Interstate 95. The city was named for 4 tree sprouts growing from a single tree trunk in 1889 and is located along the branch of the Wilmington and Weldon Railroad. The annual Acorn Festival is a huge yearly event that brings in tons of people to the event. And this is in 4 Oaks, North Carolina.
4 Oaks.
4 Oaks.
Yeah,
It's
man.
a beautiful country in the Smokies there, buddy, in Appalachian.
North Carolina boys right there, man. Yes, sir.
Beautiful country.
Thank you for listening, fellas. We sure appreciate that, man. And man, that's one thing I miss is those old oaks from back home, man. You know,
beautiful country, man.
Yes, sir.
One of the most beautiful campuses I ever been on was Appalachian State in Boone, North Carolina. Absolutely beautiful, man.
Yes, sir.
Well, Joe, next up, located along the Colorado-Wyoming border and between the Sierra Madre and Snowy Range Mountains, this town is an outdoorsman's paradise.
Oh.
Outdoor enthusiasts can enjoy rappelling, obstacle courses, firearm training, as well as regular outdoor activities. This was an old copper mining town and meeting place for trappers and Indians. Its peak, it had about a 16-mile tramway built to haul ore from the mountains to the town's smelter. So they used it to melt down ore.
There you go.
This is an encampment, Wyoming.
Encampment,
Wyoming. Appreciate you guys listening to us, man.
I don't doubt that when they say, we always hear places that say outdoorsman's paradise, which I love hearing that. I don't care if it's Missouri, Carolina, you know, Texas.
That's right.
You know, as long as they're getting out there. But man, when WYO is just,
Outdoors.
Have you hunted up in WYO?
I have. I haven't elk hunted in Wyoming, but I've deer hunted and antelope hunted. And I was actually angry at Wyoming a while back, a few years ago, right around the time that I had that COVID incident we were talking about offline.
Mm-hmm.
And had just purchased this business and everything. Wyoming's the first draw that comes up every year. It's like right after the holidays, bam, it's time to put in for Wyoming, right?
Right.
And I missed it one year. And somehow the following year, something happened and I missed it again. And they took 6 points per species from me.
Right.
And they've got a rule. If you miss it 2 years in a row, your points are gone.
Wow.
And I called there and I was like, surely there's a buyback program or something. You know what I mean? Like, this is intended for people who aren't going to keep putting in.
Extortion, brother. It's extortion,
twice,
man.
Oh, I was so hot under the collar under them for so long, and now, I'm about back to the same point or just behind that a little bit, but, no, but Wyoming's an awesome state. It's
Fishing, everything.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just tremendous, man. Yeah.
Any state where there's more deer than people is a good place.
Absolutely.
Right.
Up
Sure.
next, this city means the entrance to, all right, and because I'm going to have people mad at me here. Tataviam, Indian language. I had to be
Batavian.
close on that. It is one of the oldest neighborhoods in the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles. This is home to, God dang, Van Nuys Boulevard?
Van Nuys.
And,
Van
Van
Nuys.
Van
Van
Nuys?
Nuys. Yep.
Okay.
Van Nuys Boulevard.
You can
Been
tell
there,
I've never
done
been there. Of
Van
Hollywood
Nuys.
fame and birthplace of Richie Valens. Richie! Of La Bamba fame. All right, Gil, how do you say that word now?
What?
How do you say the town?
Oh, Pakioma.
There we go. Pakioma, California. Y'all,
Yeah.
my apologies. Love Richie Valens, man. Oh,
Yeah.
so before we go on to the next one here, Danny, I want you to be able to give a shout out to your hometown, man.
Peyton, Colorado. Awesome place. Where I live up here in Peyton, I live up in the pines and I drive down the hill and I am into antelope country and cottonwood creek bottoms. It's
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, it's
What part
really
of Colorado
cool.
is it?
It's northeast of Colorado Springs.
Okay.
About 20 minutes northeast of Colorado Springs, and I live out past the Peyton it's a strange place because that post office serves a large area.
Yes.
So there is a big area like northeast of Colorado Springs that is considered Peyton, but the
Gotcha.
town of Peyton itself is a little bitty place that doesn't even have one stoplight.
You just
Has a general store.
That's Cimarron, New
the-
Mexico, right there, bro. So,
Yeah, the high school is there and maybe, 20 houses or something like that. And I live north of the little town of Peyton proper. So Peyton represents a pretty large place, but that's where I live. I love it.
Is it P-E-Y or P-A-Y?
P-E-Y, like Peyton Manning.
Yeah. Like
Peyton.
The guy that won the Broncos, won the
Yes,
Super Bowls.
sir. No, yes.
Yeah.
His nephew's at the University of Texas. playing
Indianapolis
football.
Colts as well. Indianapolis
Yeah,
Colts,
yeah,
right?
Won a Super Bowl with the Colts.
Yep.
We don't hold that against him.
Right.
Hey, Gil, will you take the last one for us?
Sure will. This town is part of the Austin metro area. It's just a little northwest of there, but it's definitely in the metro area, and it's known for its sculpture park located at the local high school. The park is it's one of a kind in the world, right? It's 27 artists from around the world stayed with local families there and created statues from granite, concrete, bronze, and limestone. They're on permanent display at the high school there and a professional wrestler, okay, like
Wrestler.
WWE.
Rustler. I like that.
A professional wrestler, okay. Mr. Dusty Rhodes, if y'all remember back in the Paul Bosch days, Mr. Dusty Rhodes was born here in Liberty Hill, Texas, just north of Austin.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Liberty Hill.
Dusty sounds like a professional wrestler too.
He was
Yeah,
a
he
professional
does.
wrestler.
Wrestler, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. They used to have something here called Houston Wrestling back in the day. And I remember as a kid, I'd watch it on the public broadcast system, the PBS channel, and Dusty Rhodes and Hacksaw Jim Duggan and all of them would come down here and wrestle here in Houston. So it was a big deal, man. They had Paul Bosch was the guy who kind of started Houston wrestling here. So it was kind of a big deal.
Yeah, for me, I had a chance because I used to work at a hotel at home in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and went to take food to a room there. Dude, I thought there was 6 people eating. I mean, there were 2 jugs of coffee. There was like 12 eggs, a couple of plates of pancakes and sausage and stuff, and opens the door and it's Nature Boy Ric Flair. Right?
Oh, wow. Nature
I
Boy.
tell y'all, Rick could eat. Let me tell you, man. Yeah, that boy could eat. All right, fellas, let's get to our main content. This is what everybody's here for tonight, man. And this is going to be on Elk Decoys in depth. And like I said before, I just want to, and all y'all that are listening out there, our show is about you. And you got to remember, for people that hunt elk all the time, I mean, this is going to be my 42nd year. Sometimes there's things that we have a tendency, and we work hard at not doing this, but you just start to take some things for granted. You'll use a certain word or certain thing, and just because of your skill set, you can almost gloss over some things that other people are like, well, what the heck is that? You know, because of the different perspectives. So when you hear things that you want to learn about, there is no such thing as a stupid question, right? When
The one you didn't
if there's
ask.
things that you don't understand, perspectives, and it's hard because of where you're from, what you do, how you hunt, ask away, send those in, ask for us to talk about it. If it's not in our ElkBros mailbox, we're going to make it into a topic like we're doing tonight. And I want to thank Kyle Schaefer. Kyle, thank you for all your support over the years. And this was a great discussion point for us. So we're going to get rocking and rolling on this. And before I get started, how many of you guys here out of us have not used a decoy? And if you haven't, why didn't you? RC, have you used an elk decoy before?
Oh, yeah. More than once.
Okay. Chav?
Lots of times.
Personally, I haven't used it, but I've been the beneficiary of you and Gilbert using them. So I've seen it in action.
Yeah. Now, look, you and I have been partners for this is going to be our 42nd season. And over those years, I had an elk decoy, and we would be split off a lot, right? Why didn't you ever take a decoy with you, man?
I did on occasion, but I never really used it. But it was a big fold out with the spikes that you had to put it down.
Right.
And usually when I did want to use it, it was too late. The elk were already in sight. And I think one time with Gilbert, I did pop it up. And every time that I've seen it used, elk definitely pay attention.
Yeah.
They really do.
So I'm gonna defer to the pro here. Danny, why is it that because man, we have seen it, we have lived it, we've experienced it, for a lot of years using these decoys.
Using decoys. Yeah.
Why
This
don't
bull
more
right here
people
fell to
use
one.
them, man?
This bull right here fell to one.
I think that there's multiple reasons. Like I said, I've been a decoy geek for a long time, and started out using them way back. I'm like late 90s is when I bought my first, or mid 90s is when I bought my first decoy. But I've been on a lot of hunts where I didn't use the decoys at all, and primarily that was because it was in my pack.
Access.
And literally, there's a lot of two-dimensional decoys. This is one of our decoys, but these boogers, they fold up this big, which is great portability. But if it's in your backpack and kind of at the bottom of the pack, it's forgotten about. It's not something you can get out and deploy really quickly and easily.
If you like what you hear or see, you can get all of this information plus so much more from our Base Camp Elk Hunting Training Camp. This course will be like nothing you have ever experienced in concept and structure, using success-based coaching techniques that will elevate your confidence and skill sets, allowing you to see, visualize, understand, and relate every coaching point to what lies ahead, the next step, the next thought process, the next success. So if you are looking for that one thing to help you fill that tag this year, invest in the most important piece of equipment there is, you and your elk hunting knowledge. You can find the Blue Collar Elk Hunting Academy and the Base Camp Training Camp at ElkBros.com. That's ElkBros.com. Keep dreaming of the screaming, believing in achieving, and most of all, keep grinding.
I think that that's one big reason that people haven't used them. Another reason is that they don't understand kind of how to use them and when to use them. Now, these decoys, these bow-mounted Stalker decoys that we sell, they were a game changer putting it on the bow.
Right.
Like that right there made it so that that decoy is a lot more useful than any other decoy that you're hand holding.
To a solo or somebody that's partnered.
Yeah,
right.
to anybody. And let me qualify what I'm saying there. I can't tell you how many times, you know, Chav, you were talking about one of those ones that you had to stick the spikes in the ground, and you know, where we're hunting, it's nothing but rock.
Yeah.
You can't find a place real quick to just stick it in the ground and go.
Yeah,
95% of the time. So what most of us resorted to, because when we have used them and got them out there and, you know, moved them in front of an elk, most of us have had some good experiences doing that. But what we'd always do if we were the shooter and we didn't have somebody up there holding it in front of us or something like that, is I'd hang it in a tree behind me back here. Okay.
Right.
And the elk would be over here and I'd call at them or whatever. And they'd look, I never really got a good reaction with that thing hanging in the tree. And one of the things that I didn't realize at the time, and a lot of this was just inexperience, but all of us know that elk they are experts at picking up the slightest movement. Okay.
Exactly.
But if you're completely still, I can be dressed just like this.
Yep.
And if that elk does not have my wind, he will literally walk right up to me and look at me like, what kind of goofy looking tree is this? And walk right around me if I don't move. Now, if I so much as flinch, he has me. Or if he gets my wind, walks around me and gets my wind, he explodes. Okay.
Yeah.
But the decoy is no different.
Right.
If that decoy is in the wide open and they can see the silhouette, then they're going to spot it. But if it has any kind of backdrop, trees and brush and whatnot back there, if that decoy doesn't move a muscle, they don't see the decoy.
Yeah.
They don't see it, you know? And that's what happened to me a lot of times when I was hanging the decoy back here in the tree. It was blending in with everything and the elk really didn't see it. If you can, you know, with a decoy that's out in front of you, whether you've got a buddy that's holding, you know, a full body decoy and both of you are behind it, or whether you've got one of these decoys, as soon as that decoy moves and they actually see it, then the decoy can do its job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it gives it that realism, man. If
It does, man.
Yeah. You know,
We've even reached up there and wiggled its ear, you know.
That is,
oh my God, dude.
I do not know what this means. That's like winking at a girl. Or, you know.
Yeah, dude, it is the deal.
I'm going to tell you,
the deal, man.
it has sealed the deal on many a bull.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that is one of the main things is just not knowing exactly how to use them.
Yeah.
And, you know, when these things came out before I bought the company and I first started putting it on my bow, well, now, you know, when I'm in close range and a bull's coming or something like that, I don't have to find some place to hang this thing up quick or something to do with it.
Yep.
I'm just standing there. And so literally, I tell people all the time, if you've got a buddy back behind calling for you and you're the shooter up front, you got one of these on your bow, hunt that bull exactly like you would if you didn't have it on the bow.
Yeah.
Okay. If that bull's going to walk past you over here at 20 yards and keep going toward your guy and gives you a broadside shot and you're able to come back and come to full draw and he never knew you were in the world,
Yeah.
kill him.
Yeah.
Fine. That's fantastic. I don't want to show him unless I have to show him. And the situations where I have to show him is when you get a bull that hangs up.
Yeah.
Or, you know, he's gotten to a point where it's like, she should be right here.
Yeah.
And I am not seeing what I need to see.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So that what we call that, Danny, is the stop and scan spot. Every elk does that when they're coming in. That, you know, now I've walked into an area. It's like walking into that room. I should be able to see that girl that's been talking to me. And when they do that and they don't see one, that's
right.
That's when you get that hang up. Now you get them up there and they do see what they're.
It's a completely different deal.
That's a
And
sell.
you've been talking to them. You've been calling to them. You're talking to them. They're expecting to see a cow.
Right.
Yeah.
And when they see what they are expecting to see,
Oh yeah.
all of a sudden
Game changer.
it's on.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's on.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I mean, I've probably killed three bulls that I had this decoy on the bow
Mhm.
where the decoy wasn't a factor.
Right.
Bull would have died whether I had the decoy on there or not.
Yeah.
He would have, he came in and did his thing. But I've been a part of at least 3 bull kills in the last 3 years that there's no way that bull would have died had we not had the decoy.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, no way.
It's kind of like a great handgun. Better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it.
That's exactly right. It's funny.
Yeah.
Joe was telling me, he's heard guys say, I don't need a decoy. Well, that's like saying you don't need a backpack.
Yeah.
Or,
yeah.
I don't need hunting
When
boots.
you do need it, you need it. You know?
Yeah, like, I can kill elk in tennis shoes. Maybe there's somebody that's done that for their entire life.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a point where you need a dang boot on because there's 6 inches of snow or something.
Don't be picking on me, Danny. Don't be picking
Hey,
on me, man.
I love wearing my Solomons to elk hunt in, but
Yeah.
there's certain hunts where I ain't going to wear a pair of Solomons up in there. I need
No,
some
it
ankle
makes-
support.
It makes sense, Danny. I got to hunt with a good friend of mine, the Pennsylvania cat killer, and Brendan Houlihan. And I'm going to tell you right now, I watched firsthand how well that decoy helped us. And we should have killed that bull. We just had a little bit of bad luck, and Brendan didn't draw when he needed to. That's just kind of some bad opportunity, but we walked over a little rise, and when we walked, we'd been calling and we got a little impatient, and we walked up this rise, and when we walked up, the bull actually caught our movement and boogered, right? And we saw him, and I cow called to him, and then I chuckled, and he stopped, and he turned and looked at us, and Brendan started digging his decoy out of the backpack, right?
Didn't have it on the boat.
Didn't have it on the boat. He gets it out of the backpack, okay? And he's behind me, and I'm calling, just trying to settle this bull down. He gets it out of the backpack and puts it on the front of his bow. And I said, get that thing up there. And then he started wiggling its ear. Man, I called that bull back not 1 time, not 2 times, not 3 times, but 6 times I called that 5x5 back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, we should have killed him 5 times. Right.
Yeah.
But he just got so locked into the bull looking at him. I'm like,
Well,
yeah, he's looking at him because he's looking at the decoy.
I'm gonna tell you
Kill
right
that
now,
son of a
man.
gun, dude.
I've been in that guy's shoes. Everything in your past, all of your hunting, all of your bow hunting experience collectively is telling you don't move.
Exactly.
Don't move. Don't move a muscle. He's looking right at me.
Yeah.
Man, that is what's so beautiful about having this thing hands-free
Amen,
on
Danny.
the bow
Yeah.
is because you can move. Once they've seen this thing, they're expecting it to move.
Yeah.
And if you have already done, and don't make big, stupid movements, make very small little movements, and then something natural like that, and once it's moved a few times, as long as you can draw your bow and you're not overbowed, and this is important for all elk hunters, regardless of whether you're using a decoy or not.
Go up to the sky.
If you can't draw your bow without lifting your bow arm like this, you are overbowed.
Yeah.
It is vitally important for you to be able to draw that string straight back to your nose like this, whether you have the decoy on or not. Because even if you don't have the decoy on, the difference in movement between this and this is giant. It's a giant difference in movement. And just like we talked about before, elk are experts at catching movement.
Yep.
Well, and that movement doesn't have to be because you're overbowed. The other one is sometimes you have your bow down lower, and so you go up really quick to draw, and you get that quick movement up. I'm just saying for a friend, I've seen it happen. So,
Yeah.
you know, if you have it down low, because you are behind that booger, and then
Right.
so you go to draw, and if you do it and you do it too quick and pop it up, just that little quick movement make them flare away.
Yes.
Like that too.
Yeah.
So, but you know, when we were talking about why more people don't use decoys, you know, I can hear somebody that believed in them, right?
Mhm.
And where you were talking about being ready, I just want to give that hint right away is that whether, and I did it for years with the Montana decoy, the Miss September, that it's a little bit bigger than what yours is up to, but you always have this space, or on mine, I have a space between my back and my pack. And
Mhm.
I always slide my decoy right between my back and my pack. That
In
way,
that curve.
if I'm in a situation where I need it, it's right there
Pop
for
it
me
right
to
out.
pull and yank that out, right?
Mhm.
Well, I've got a couple of tips in that aspect. I mean, that's one of the major reasons why people haven't used them regularly is because they think if it's in their pack, they'll just take the time to get, man,
You're not
everything
going
you do is exhausting out there. And a lot of times you don't have time for something like that. Sounds like Gilbert's buddy was pretty lucky to get it out of his pack and get it on. But
What? No, so he had it in that curve, and I pulled it out and handed it to him. Right. So
Well,
I mean, we worked together to get that done. A lot of times when you're partner hunting.
whichever, you know, you need to think about this prior to whether you're using ours or any other collapsible style decoy.
It was yours.
I use mine.
Yep.
I'll put mine under my bino harness right here.
Yeah. Oh,
So
that's a good
literally, I
idea.
tuck it right there under my bino harness. The ears might be hanging out, something like that, or I can
Right.
go ahead and fold those up
Fold
too
them
if I
in,
want
yeah.
to. But I tuck it under the bino harness, and it doesn't move.
Gotcha.
And now, but I'm going to qualify this with elk. I don't take it off my bow.
Right.
And the one thing about carrying that thing, if you've done it at all, you know that when you've got that thing on the front of your bow, it is a pain in the butt to carry through the woods.
right.
You know,
Yep.
it's just catching on things.
Yep.
Your arm starts to get tired, all kinds of things. Well, we've got several different kinds of attachment systems. And our most popular one is called a spider wrap system with some rubber covered wires that attach it to your bow. But we've got one called a strap attachment system. It was the original one. It's just 3 long pieces of reinforced Velcro.
Mhm.
And on that system, I will put it on a piece of the bow where I can leave it just a little bit loose. And what I will do is I purposely, I don't run a super long stabilizer when I'm elk hunting.
Yeah, me either.
And if I do, I'm going to put it on a quick detach so that I can take it off of there real quick if I need to pivot the elk. What I do is I pivot that elk around this side of the bow
Mhm.
on the quiver side. Okay.
Mhm.
So it's sitting like this on the side of the bow. Now I can carry that bow flat up next to me. I can lay the bow flat on the ground. I can do everything that I normally do.
And it
I don't
becomes
have to hold it.
becomes a shield
Yeah.
almost if
Yeah.
you do see
Yeah.
an animal, right?
If I'm walking along and there all of a sudden here's a bull that hung up,
Yeah.
or walking over the hill like you were, Gilbert, bam, here he is.
Right.
Now I still have something I can hide behind.
Yep.
Now, you know, this is the side of the bow that I'm showing him,
Yep.
but I can hide behind this. I can ear flick him. I can sell him. I can pause him. I can still get an arrow out of my quiver, load it. Now, in this situation, I'm gonna have to wait for him to be distracted or his head behind something or, you know, something along those lines, but I can still point the bow at him, draw back and shoot it,
Right.
you know? And so I walk around the woods with it like this on the side of the bow. And then when we get to the point where we're going to stop and do a calling set,
Yeah. You position it
I
in
just
the right
pivot
spot.
that sucker right
Yeah.
back onto the front of the bow, you know,
Yeah.
and do my calling set.
Yeah.
And when we're done, if nothing showed up, pivot it back to this side
Makes
and
sense.
keep on going about what I'm doing.
Do you always pivot it to the quiver side, Denny?
Quiver side.
Yeah. Makes
Um,
sense.
If you
And-
use a bow hitch, man, it just rides just like
Yeah.
cake, right? If you use it
Yeah.
right there on your side. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you another reason that a lot of people didn't use them or shy away from it sometimes is that, you know, like I said, for years, I used that Miss September because it was able to be folded up and everything like that. But, when I first got it, the stakes on it, number one, are heavy as heck. And then by the time you got it into the ground, and if you did get it into the ground, now sometimes you could find a situation where you can make it happen if you were behind it or something like that. But so many elk setups are so dynamic that you just set this booger up, and then all of a sudden that bull, the cows take them off in a different direction. Now you're burning time trying to get that up and carry this thing with these stakes in it. It was just so cumbersome to the point where I quit doing it with by myself with stakes. The only time I would use that thing was with a partner. That was the only time. And, and I'll give you, just like you said, Danny, about the flick there. I can remember, partner hunting, a bull coming up. I've got my partner well in front of me. And instead of just pulling that up and showing it, I would actually open it up behind a tree. And when that bull looked up there, I would just back the rear end out just a little bit, just so it saw a little bit of movement, and then caught that, there's, and here it comes. And it's the same thing that you can do with that. That's what I love about it mounted on my bow. Now, that was one reason, was the cumbersome, the time it took to set up, the distraction it was, it just didn't make it viable in a lot of situations. Now, there was a time when me and Gilbert had a place where we had kind of a little blind, natural blind set up to a place they like to come into water. And what I did was actually set a decoy on the opposite end of the way those elk would come in the wide open, so that when they came into that field, they would relax and see another decoy. Because of that, it brought a bull right by us and we were able to kill it. But that has to be the right situation. We're going to talk about those scenarios here in a little bit. But I think the main reason people don't use them is because, number one, like you said, they're not ready to use it. They're not sure the situation to use it in. And they're worried about whether or not it's going to help them. They've never experienced it, so they're not sure about that, right? So,
They haven't been in the situation. Back to my comment about guys that say, I don't need a decoy to kill elk. And that you're exactly right. In some situations, you don't need a decoy until you do.
Right.
And
until the bull hangs up and you can't get
there's so many scenarios, not just when the bull hangs up, but there was a bull that I killed a few years ago that was coming up the spine. I expected him to take a left, and he was going to walk behind a big tree. I'd have a perfect position to be able to shoot, to draw my bow and everything. He didn't take a left. He took a right. And all of a sudden there's nothing in between us. And he's like 5 steps he's at 11 yards is what I shot him at. And if he takes 3 or 4 more steps, he's going to be in my wind. Game over, done. No calling that bull back, nothing. I had the decoy on my bow, and it was like draw now or never. And when I drew, he, instead of doing the freak out and bolt, and maybe he stops and you get a shot, maybe he doesn't, maybe he goes into the trees too far and you don't get a shot. He stood right there and actually took a step forward and opened his shoulder up for me and ate that arrow at 11 yards. Now, I might have still killed him had I not had the decoy on my bow, maybe, but there is no way that he would have just stood there to take that shot.
Okay,
no
well, he
way.
was expecting to see an elk, huh? And he did.
Here you go. Here's a true story. I got 2 boys on here that watched this happen, right?
Yeah.
So we are in a set, moving in because we had a bull that has bugled. We've set up. I start doing a little set. I hear the bull, and I'm super aggressive. I hear the bull that he's gone away, and it's in the morning. I know that he's moving cows. They're going to go further. So I'm fixing just to go into a foot race and catch these boogers. And after we had done the set, so I go to stand up, and what I didn't notice was the 5 young bulls that were coming in from my right while I was, tunnel visioned on where that other bull does. I stand up, and these guys aren't 30 yards away. They see the movement. Now I got the sun at my back, the wind in my face, perfect situation. They see the movement and they start to run away. And I all three of us, because we're all three, me, Gil, and Chav are together. I hit the ground, and this is the first decoy that I got from you, Dan. It was that first year in 2019, dude. So I've got the deke. It's already stuffed here where I used to keep the Montana. I've got that Ultimate Predator right here. And that was the first time when those bulls stopped, because I cow called as soon as I dropped, and they stopped, right? And
Yeah, you
honest
and
to
I
God,
both
I
were
said,
calling to him.
what do I have to lose? This is time to see some. I pull out the decoy, open it on the ground, stick it on the Velcro, bring it up, cow call, and they turn and they look at that decoy, and they're looking at it. I flick the ear, and here they come
rolling
in a line. Dunk,
Here they
right?
come, buddy.
Coming straight at me to 20 yards. Now, this is where I actually, and the guys give me heck about this, and it wasn't my fault. It was because Gil pressured me not to practice with it. So I had not practiced with it on my bow. I shot instinctive, and so a bare bow, it's a compound.
Yeah.
Instinctive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I make that mistake where that bull's standing in front of me at 20 yards. I go to draw, and when I do it, I raise up, and that raising up boogers that bull. He flares to the left. I cow call. He stops and looks at that decoy again and stops now at 30 yards broadside. He's got a aspen right on the front shoulder. All I have is nothing but kill right there where I'd like to punch it, right? So I draw back on him this time, nice and smooth, come back. And here's the second mistake I make is that not practicing with it and having looked at that sight window before as an instinctive shooter, when you look down an arrow at an instinctive shooter with both eyes open like I shoot, you get two arrows, right? Well, one of them, and what I mean is in your vision, you have the image from each eye of where that arrow is pointing. Well, because of the fact that one of those was off the sight window, I lined up with the wrong one, which made me shoot to the left, and I zeroed this aspen tree.
Oh, great.
Right there.
Center punches him, man.
So now the bull busts off. That's two attempts.
Yeah.
A cow call. The bull now stops and looks at me at 50 yards.
Yeah.
This is the third attempt, dude.
Yeah.
And even though after everything that happened, all of that, and these other bulls are looking at me and this decoy going, like,
What is
Yeah.
wrong with
what do
this
you say,
going
Gil?
on?
Like a young calf looking at a gate?
Like a calf looking at a new gate.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
just like, they are baffled. And I look and I realize my mistake. I pull back. I get my vision right. He's at 50, and I just center punch it, right?
Yeah.
Bull doesn't go 30 yards and heels up after that.
Yeah.
Now, this bull is dead on the ground. I've taken three opportunities, one
Yeah.
shot before, and I got two other guys that got tags.
Yeah.
Dude, those other bulls stayed there for I couldn't tell you how long. They could smell the blood. They saw the elk go down, but yet they would not leave
They didn't know
because of the
They didn't
decoy.
understand.
We
Yeah.
called him back 3 times, Danny. We called him back 3 times, and I had one of them at 44 yards frontal. And I'm drawn the whole 9 yards, and I'm like, I just don't like a frontal shot at that distance, you know.
No.
So I held what I had and said, I'm like, if he ever turns broadside, he's going to get it, you know. And he just, I don't know if he didn't like the setup. I think it was the other bull, and he's smelling that blood. He busted out of there, and we even called him back again, but he just wouldn't never turn broadside to us, you know. But
Right.
he knew
Yeah.
something wasn't right. But Joe's
Right.
got a bull down, and I mean, it happened so fast, and we kept calling those bulls back. You know, when Joe hit
Well,
that tree
I would've-
next to the bull 10 feet away, I was like, "What is going on?"
I would have loved to have had a double with our who doubles on bulls, dude?
Oh, my
That
gosh,
doesn't-
dude.
You know, that
Telling
would have
you.
been sweet.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you know,
almost triple.
your point that you were talking about how you hadn't practiced with the decoy on that first year. People often ask us, what does it do to your shooting? And I can tell you right now, you do need to take a few shots with it on there. However, if you're a compound pin shooter,
Right.
it does nothing
No.
to your point of impact.
No.
Nothing. And the one thing that it can do is, well, there's two things it can do. Number one is if you get wind if there's too much wind and it's pulling you around, you just can't have it on your bow. And I'll show you a method for how to deal with that if you need to in the future. But the one other thing that it will cause you to do is when you are shooting, it will increase your tendency to want to peek to see where that arrow's going.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you practice, you need to concentrate on watching your arrow impact through here. And then you followed through pretty well. If you don't practice like that, you're going to do this.
Yeah.
And when you're dropping that bow arm, it's going to cause low left misses.
Yeah.
But that's with a pin shooter out of a compound. The people that it will mess up are instinctive shooters, either trad shooters or bare bow instinctive shooters, because you are relying on a lot of that peripheral vision to have depth perception.
Right.
And if you practice with this, you'll get used to the new sight picture,
right?
And you'll get your depth perception back, and you'll get an idea of what you're doing. But the first time you throw it on there, and you've got a completely different sight picture, your instinctive shooting is not going to be good immediately. You need to practice with it on there.
No, absolutely.
But I'm glad that you
quick.
Yeah, I'm glad that you made that second shot count, Joe. But
yeah. Well, I can tell you this, dude. Me and Gil have been behind it, called in a bull that, I mean, we're arguing about who's going to shoot it.
Yeah.
And
serious, literally having a conversation. Who's going to kill this bull?
Mm-hmm.
And the bull's standing 25 yards from us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, Joe, this is your bull. He goes, no, man, I'm filming. I said, I am too. He goes, well, which one of us going to kill the bull? I mean, we're talking. The bull's looking like, what's going on here, man? And then what we didn't know is there was another bull coming in from our left.
Oh, man.
It was crazy. Yeah. We've had some really crazy times, Danny, with your product. And I'm 100% full believer in it after I called that bull back 6 times for Brendan. I mean, it was amazing. I'm like, it's a game changer. And then I killed another bull with Joe, and we had an 8-minute standoff with a bull. And we had the decoy out, and Joe flickering its ear and everything. Brendan had one on his bow as well. I mean, it's been a game changer for us here at ElkBros, brother.
It seems like when the elk come in and see that decoy, that everything else kind of fades to black.
Yeah.
Because in that first incident, Gilbert, Joe, and I, we really didn't have much of a background, and we're in the wide open, and they never noticed us.
Yeah.
And
they get tunnel vision. They get tunnel vision on what?
Yeah. They get tunnel vision, and everything else fades.
They saw that decoy, and they're like, man, that's a cow. We've heard her over here in another bull for a long while. I mean,
that's right.
This is the deal, man. We're seeing a cow now. We're not smelling anything, but we're seeing it. And that's one of their big traits is if we see it, it's the real deal, right? Of course, their nose is the number one thing, but man, when they see something, like you said, they pick movement up so well. And that thing's so lifelike, especially with them eyes, the raised eyes and everything, that the hard eyes that y'all put on it, that thing is so real looking, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've got 3 major forms of defense.
Right.
It's their eyesight, their hearing, and their nose.
Yeah.
And you fool
2 of them.
You're fooling 2 of them.
Yeah. That's right.
It doesn't do a dang thing for the 3rd one.
Nope.
You're in the same boat. They walk behind you and get your wind. Most times that decoy is not going to stop that bull. It can, but most times it's not going to. As soon as he gets your stink, he's gone.
Well, just like us, though, elk are visual critters. They want to verify visually. So when an elk sees another elk that is not alarmed, that is there, especially like you were talking about before, you can actually combine decoy types, with these. If you've got 3 guys together, you can have 2 guys in the back. One, you could actually have the guy in front that has the decoy on their bow. You can have somebody in the back that has a full body decoy back there that you just hold. And
we do it a lot.
Cell it is, man. It's a huge cell.
I tell people all the time, because a lot of them, they'll buy the decoy and then I see them, having the caller hold the decoy
Yeah.
and not put it on the bow. And it's like, guys, you are missing the boat here,
Yeah.
because that's what makes this thing awesome, is that it is hands-free and on your bow.
Yeah.
Just like I said before, you're not going to necessarily need it in every circumstance. But Joe, you were talking about following a bull that was headed to his bedding area and you're trying to do the catch-up thing. Well, 9 times out of 10, you ain't catching up with that bull. And even if
I
you
don't
do,
know, buddy.
getting him to
You don't
turn
know
around and
Joe.
leave those cows to come back is a very difficult thing. Well,
Yeah.
Last year before last, we had that situation. Bull bugled all the way along the ridge above our camp. We got up in there behind him and we're trying to play catch up. He'll answer us, but he's not turning around and we're not catching up to him. I mean, they travel quick going to those bedding areas. Well, we got lucky. He went down across a big draw and there was a wallow in the bottom, and he paused there and wallowed a little bit before he went up the other side, and he had a couple of cows that he was following. Well, we caught up to him just in time to catch him right before he went in the timber on the other side of that draw. Well, we called at him. He turns around and looks, and my son is the shooter, and he's got this decoy on in the front. And after the bull stood there and bugled, didn't move. He was probably 250 yards away. Well, Lane steps out from behind a tree, and he gives him the ear flick and gets his attention. Bull bugled, but he just stood there and for 5 minutes just bugled at him, telling her, get your butt over here.
Yeah.
We're all going to bed. Get your butt over here. Well, I motioned to him, and we've got another decoy that's a butt decoy. We call it a butts up. We sell them as a package. You can buy one of each. And oftentimes when there's 2 of us hunting and we both have bows, whoever the guy is in the back calling with his bow, we'll put that butt decoy on his bow. And in this situation, I told Lane, hide, I waved him off. He hid behind a tree, and I took that butt decoy, and I'm 50 yards behind him. And I just stepped out from behind the brush real quick, showed him a flash of that butt, and did it one more time. And after standing there for like 7 minutes, bugling from 250 yards, when he saw that cow leaving, he broke and he came down across, and Lane shot him at 25 yards. There's so many different instances.
Man.
Like that bull,
So cool.
if we hadn't had decoys, absolutely 110% would not have died.
Yeah.
It was, we could see in that situation, it's time to pull that tool out of the toolbox and give it a try,
Right.
and that's the point, I guess, that I'd really like people to understand, is it's just another tool, and you got to know how to use that tool and when to use it.
So we're using, so we use calls. I mean, we're very aggressive callers. And again, I define aggressive in not aggressive sounding type calls, but aggressive in using calls, right?
Sure.
We're constantly trying to create the scenario of elk doing elk things. So we're using the sounds, and we're playing towards the ears, and we're hiding from those elk. But a lot of times that you end up in situations where you're not able to hide, and that stop and scan spot is 50 yards out, 70 yards out, 80 yards out. So when that animal comes in there, the problem is when you're not moving and you're not going to move, because now he could see you as soon as you make a sound, that's that red flag. That's when he hangs. That's when he's bored. That's when he gets worried because he doesn't see what he's hearing, and he goes out, because visually is their first thing that they want. Now, here's the beauty of this, is that now when that animal comes, and even if it's a situation where you have 2, like you said before, I don't have to do anything with that elk on the front. It a lot of time, if I'm the shooter on the front and I have a caller in the back, it just gives me a way sometimes to draw if I'm not able to draw, right? If I'm in a situation. Right. And the other thing is, like we tell people, we always preach you're going to draw, because when a bull comes in, you're going to draw on that bull as soon as that bull's in the open and you've got that open shot. Now, a lot of times they're their fatal flaw is they're going to stop broadside and they're going to look at you and you're going to pop them. Sometimes because of that movement, they flare because it's like, what was that? Well, when you do that draw with that decoy on it and they see that, you don't get the same flare. You get a whole lot more relaxation out of them. So it gives you that kind of cover. Now, here's the thing. That bull is 80 yards out there. You've got that decoy on it. He hasn't seen, let's say you're solo, right? He has not seen that decoy because that decoy is still. He's looking like that. All I have to do at that point is, even it happens with if I just have my bow, but we use our bugle tube, we use a flex, we use our soloist, and we throw call behind us that is going back 40, 50 yards back. Now, that bull now sees that cow decoy on my bow, right? And here he comes because, oh, there you are. Now I can do the flick if he get there because he's recognized it. I don't have to do anything. He walks up, we get in that situation, we're going to be gold, right? So, yeah. And
well, it's interesting. You said something about the flare. Well, what I have had happen is a bull that was fairly close that hadn't spotted us yet. You know what I mean? And somebody drew and they caught that movement and they did flare, boom, usually straight to you to see what it is. But the difference is when you don't have a decoy in front of you, they flare, do that, and then and it's all at once. It's just, you know, a big motion. What they will usually do when you have the decoy, if they do catch that movement and it surprises them, they will jump like that. But
they'll lock up.
Got to remember, they're looking at an elk. You don't have to rush a shot usually. Usually, after they do that big jump, there's a, you know, oh, there she is. And either he walks toward you or he got a frontal shot situation that we probably need to talk about.
Circle. Yeah.
Or at some point, he's like, I don't know if I buy this or not. But even when they don't buy it, they do this.
Oh yeah.
Like for a long time, man. It's like there's gonna be a shot, you know, just don't rush it if that happens. But I'm sorry if I derailed you, Joe.
No, it's all good. So I want to do this because we're talking about using elk, and we've talked about some different scenarios. Like we talk about a hung scenario. Actually, I still stay true to my system when I'm calling, even with a decoy, and that I want to hide from that animal, right?
Yes.
I want to hide from that bull, make him come search me out. I like to keep thick cover in front of me to get them more broadside when they start to come in from the sides. I do the same thing, but now that decoy gives me an added advantage. If that bull does come and look, and then he sees that, he's going to relax, man. So that helps me out a ton. So we'll talk more about different types of scenarios, but let's do this. When do you not use them?
When it's windy. Honestly, for elk hunting, like I said before, that's the only species where I want it on my bow the whole time. I don't take it off my bow when I'm elk hunting, and because there's been too many scenarios where we bumped one, and you know you weren't going to have time to get it out of the pack, and we ended up killing bulls that we ran right head on into. You know what I mean? Lane, my son, drew 3 times with a bull that was full frontal at 28 yards, and wouldn't leave and wouldn't move, and every time he'd start to turn to go, I'd give him a cow call, or Lane would redraw. He'd catch the movement and he'd go full frontal again. If you're using a decoy, that full frontal is a very realistic situation that you might be up against. And in our opinion, I mean, with me being affiliated with Bowhunter TV, we've had this long catalog of elk that have been shot at, and we've watched arrows and how long it takes them to move and react. I'm very comfortable with a full frontal shot at under 20 yards.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Over 20 yards, I'm not comfortable with it at all because they have time to do this.
They do.
You know, even if it's like 23, 24 yards and you're shooting 90, they can pivot, and now you're into shoulder, bad stuff, you know. But there's that spot on the front of them that's about the size of a volleyball.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
if you hit that spot at full frontal, you know, right where the brisket meets the bottom of the neck right there, you watch that bull die. He doesn't make it out of sight,
Yeah.
you know? So,
But you've got to, and see, you said something that I want to make sure people heard, is that I'm very comfortable with a full frontal. You're very comfortable with a full frontal. So,
under 20 yards.
right.
Under 20.
And so other people, what I always tell them, I don't tell anybody what shot they should take because there's a lot of fatal shots. I tell
Sure.
reasons why we don't coach them. But
Right.
if you are not comfortable with a full frontal,
Yeah.
don't take that shot, right?
Don't take it.
Mhm.
Because I
He's
can
got
tell
to
you
turn and
this,
walk
too.
out of your life.
So when
Yeah.
that elk comes in and he's full frontal like that, then there's going to be a few things that happen. At some point, that bull is going to have to go off to the side. He's not going to walk you over. He's going to go to the side. He's going to circle to one side or the other. He's going to show himself. He's going to try to be masculine, or, you know, he's going to turn to go away. When a bull turns to go away, all you got to do is just now bugle at that point and he locks up again. So just because it's full frontal doesn't mean you have to rush anything. It doesn't mean you have to
Right.
take that shot. Learn how that animal reacts. Let it, for the better, you know, for the lack of a better term, let it fail maybe, right?
Right.
And learn something from it and get used to how they work so that you understand it. And a lot of times it's not going to. You're just going to realize that sometimes we add the pressure to the situation.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
if you enjoyed the situation, you're actually going to end up with a better shot selection just by enjoying playing with that decoy. And
Right.
trust me, that bull can walk away and turn, and you can call, and he will
Right
actually
back.
come right back
Right
sometimes,
back.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It
long as
depends
he
on the
doesn't smell you.
situation.
mhm.
Yeah,
long as
if
he
you're
doesn't
not
smell
if
you.
you're not comfortable with it, and you know, it is important to know where to hold there. You've got to do some studying on the
Oh,
anatomy.
Anatomy. Yep.
And when I say full frontal, I mean full frontal.
Yeah.
We're not talking about
Quarter.
slightly quartering.
No.
right.
That's not the same thing. And
No.
and that's a dangerous shot that can have very bad consequences
If you don't know
Um,
what you're doing,
if
right?
you don't know what you're doing with it. But we were talking about when we don't use them with the wind.
Yeah.
In really windy situations, I mean, you put
It
this
blows
thing
your
on
bow
and
around.
it's a kite, you
Yeah.
know, and it pulls your bow around. There are situations where I just fold it up, put it under my bino harness, and keep it there. Like, especially I've run into a couple above timberline where the
Mhm.
wind was just whipping through there and I didn't want to mess with it at all. But if I want to use it and there is some wind, there is a very simple thing that you do. You're holding your bow up right
Is
here.
that a bow hitch you got on that bow?
It
I got a
is.
bow
Yeah.
hitch on that bow.
It
Yes,
is.
sir.
Yeah.
Got introduced to that by my buddy down in southern New Mexico. And I
Armando.
just started using it last
Armando
year.
Martinez, yeah.
I didn't get to meet Armando,
No?
but my buddy down there actually hooked
It's a
me up
game.
with it, and
It's a game
Cool.
changer, man.
yeah, it was a cool deal. But with the decoy, if you want to use it when it's windy, all you do is take that bow hand and grip right there on the window with the bow. Okay.
Right.
So now I still have the bow just like this. I'll load an arrow in here and everything. I
Right.
use the bow sideways, do everything sideways.
Yep.
But when it's time to go ahead and draw,
Yep.
when I start to put pressure on the string and I open this bow hand, decoy falls right off side of the bow and I'm at full draw with no decoy on the bow.
Gotcha.
The other thing is if it's windy and you have a partner, at that point the partner's the decoy.
Yeah. Yep. Have them
Exactly.
hold on to it.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the only enemy of this thing is high winds, you know, and then you just got to take it off.
You know, getting to a couple of scenarios, Chav and I had a bull bugling, and we didn't know, but it was several bulls. We had a bull bugling probably about a quarter mile from us, but we had to go through about 25 or 30 cows. And I mean, we didn't have a cow tag with us. We did. I take that back. But we heard those bulls up ahead of them. So we decided to forego taking one of the cows, and we went towards the bulls. But we had the decoy with us. and we pulled that decoy out, put it on the front of the bow, and we walked, I mean, walked right through the herd that was above us to the left. We had the wind on them, and I just turned my bow, and Chav and I just kept working, and we walked across an open area, brother.
Yeah.
It's probably, man, I wish I could say where it's at, but that'd give it away. But at the end of the day, we walked across that open area that's at least 300 yards, man, to get to the trees. Once we get to they never boogered out of that pocket. We walked right in between them all. And I'm looking at Chad, and he goes, wow, I can't believe we just walked right through the middle of them,
Yeah.
And we did, but we were sounding like elk, had an elk decoy on, looking like elk, and had the wind, right?
Yeah.
So we were not afraid at all number one, we weren't worried about boogering them because we had a couple of bulls bugling up a quarter mile from us, right? We maybe wasn't even that far, huh, Chad? Maybe about 4 or 5
Yeah, a
miles.
little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit closer.
But if you don't have the decoy and you try to work across that opening,
it blows up like
it
it
could blow up, and those cows might go straight to that quarter of a mile straight toward the rest of the elk and booger those bulls,
Exactly. We ended up killing a bull. We ended up killing a bull that evening out of that group. We finally got one of them dumb enough to come towards us, and he got within bow range, and we put him down. But
So-
it was awesome.
I want to say something else about that butt decoy, because a bull elk, when he has a cow's butt to him, will go around to see that cow's face. He'll actually turn broadside to circle around to get to where he's being noticed by that cow, because right now he's being butted
laying
by
for
that
him,
cow, right?
right.
Yeah. And
Makes sense.
he can't, or he's going to a side to catch scent. I mean, but he will flare to a side on that butt. So that's something else that helps with that, as well.
Yeah, I've not actually shot one with the butt decoy on my bow. I've hunted with it on my bow, but usually when I have it on the bow, I'm the caller. I'm the guy that's going to be in the back.
Yes, sir.
And it can be a great tool for if you get that bull, you're talking just like you were talking about before, Gilbert. We're talking to this bull over here, but all of a sudden, bam, here's a bull right behind me. You know what I mean? Well, now I still have something to deal with, but there is a time and a place for that butt decoy. And usually we've found that there are bulls that they're usually bulls that you're trying to convince to leave cows to come grab another couple of cows, and they're very hesitant to do it. They don't want to leave this group of cows because there's probably a satellite bull around somewhere. And so when a lot of times you show that bull this and she's looking at him and her attention's on him, he'll stand there and bugle at her and bugle and bugle and bugle.
Chuckle, bugle,
Never
chuckle.
take a step toward you,
Because she's looking at him.
And I'm telling you that we've had multiple situations where we just hid that frontal cow and we showed him a cow that was leaving, and here he came. Broke him after standing there for over 5 minutes.
Wow.
Doing that,
That's such
Well, I want to
good-
give you
that's such good
another
juice,
scenario,
man.
because let's talk about some different scenario or setup situations like that too. And again, there's some of these that you can use different types of decoys, right? And you can combine decoys. But one thing that I like when you talk about the butt decoy like that is I like to put bulls and actually that herd to bed, right? So in the morning when they're going to bed, I'll let them go to bed, let them get settled in. It lets me now pick the playing field. It lets me find that downwind on the same level as those animals. And then I can do some things to bring him in. So I am always a lover before a fighter. So we're going to start introducing a cow to try to get that bull. Because he has his cows bedded, he will now leave them to go check out another cow situation or a breeding sequence or something like that. But what's great is, as now partnered up, because I know where that bull is bedded from where they are, and I get to choose the ground, we're able to get my guy to be able to set up on whatever, if we're going to do a little L curve or J on that or something like that, where now I can be a little bit further back, and I can start doing those cow calls and show that bull when that bull, I can have that butt there. And again, now it looks like that bull is not staring at him. It looks like that bull is walking away. So now
Right.
you have a situation where he's going to pull right by that other shooter. And all it was I put him in a situation that I got to pick the playing field. So
Yeah.
it's a dynamite one.
That makes a ton of sense.
The other one is that we do a lot of traveling and calling sound like a couple of cows, a cow with a calf or something like that as we're moving through the trails, as we're moving through transition areas. So you get a lot of bulls that sneak in on you from the sides in different directions. That's
Right.
having that decoy on the front of your bow. So many people get busted because that elk sees them and not another elk. And sometimes you don't even see them, right? They bust you and then they turn and go out and you never even knew they were there. But when you have that decoy on it, you're in so much better situation when one comes in on you silently and they're going to. So,
And I'll tell you what, like you're really preaching to the choir there. The number one thing for me that this thing does is when I'm by myself.
right.
And like for a solo hunter, for a long time, if I was hunting by myself, you're very cautious about continuing to call until that bull pinpoints you. You don't want him to pinpoint exactly where you are. You want to stop at the right time to let him come past you. You know what I mean?
Right.
And now there was a lot of times where you lost the bull because you stopped. You lost his interest. He went back to his cows, whatever happened, and he didn't, or he hits the point where it's like, okay, I should be seeing something now.
Yeah.
Now I don't care whether he pinpoints me.
Yeah.
I will bring him straight to me, Now, obviously, once I lay eyes on him, I'm not going to call at him unless I want him to see me, unless I need to, if he's working his way toward me or showing the decoy. I'm not going to show the decoy and try to make sure he sees it unless I need to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if he hangs up or if he takes a wrong turn and he's walking toward my wind or something like that, or starts to turn around and leave, all of those situations. But the first thing that I'm not going to do is show him the decoy. You know what I mean?
Yep.
The decoy's there if I need it, and there's some situations, just like I've said earlier, where you don't,
Right.
where you use the system that you're talking about, Joe.
Yeah.
And
Like
it pulls
it's worked
them right
for 30
past.
some odd years, right?
Exactly.
So
And
for us,
the difference is this happened to be on the front of your bow when you shot him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you didn't need it that time.
for us, Danny, this is our soloist grunt tube, the flex tube. So when we're moving through and calling, we're calling with mouth in position, or we're throwing calls back behind us, right?
Yep.
So in doing that, what's nice is I'm able to have that decoy on there, and I don't have to worry about a big tube or something like that. It's just easy to go and easy to call like that. And really, Bud, our system with your system has been just been phenomenal. And yeah, and it's something that I'll tell you,
Killed a lot of bulls, man.
oh, I coach, I call them my athletes. I coach the hunters for Hunt Wars, and we had two fellas that came into Hunt Wars with zero, had never shot a big game animal with a bow, had never hunted a big game animal with a bow, had never hunted elk, came in the course, listened to the system that we're talking about right now, carried the predator decoy on their bow, and we're up against guys that had been hunters in Wyoming, hunters in Arizona, guys with skill sets. They were the last people that they were worried about, but these guys soaked in everything, took the playbook, went out there, and end up winning the Hunt Wars competition just by following that playbook, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
It's a deadly combination. And I mean, I'm a big believer in throwing sound like you're talking about. And
Directional calling. Yep.
directional calling is huge, man. I mean, how many times have we been fooled about how far a bull is just by which way he's facing when he calls? There's
just the acoustics of the mountain.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And those guys, the shooter had the decoy on his bow, the collar was back behind. So
Yeah.
just like you were
Yeah.
talking about before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? I want to grab. Keep talking, Joe. I'm going to
Yeah.
grab one thing over here. I can hear you while I'm grabbing it.
Yeah. So the main thing that we want to talk about is possible failure points for people to avoid, right? Things that can go wrong. And I think we've mentioned some of those. Like
Sure,
RC,
shooting with
that
it.
you said that you hunted with decoys in the past, right? It wasn't this particular model, it wasn't the Ultimate Predator decoy. What was the biggest issues or problems or failure points you guys had in the past?
It's like you say, you know, the one I had was the one that you had to stick in the ground.
Hmm.
And so it was, you know, finding a rocky, hard spot. You know, you couldn't get it in the ground. And then it was like, okay, it's time to move. Now we got to go pick it up and try to get it out of the ground, take it apart. Do we take it apart or we just carry it like that? It's one of the, I don't know if you want me to tell this story or not, but it actually, to me, I think it saved me or Carl's life one time by having a decoy. We were hunting and we were in some little jack pines, which are about 4 or 5 feet high.
Mhm.
And Carl was probably 100 yards from me, and we had it set up in the middle of us, this little cow decoy. And I was calling, and that's when I was pretty young with it and was using the cow call, and it sounded a lot like a predator call.
And you,
Mm.
what you,
And
would you bring in, a bear or a cat?
I called in a big mountain lion,
Yeah.
Ooh, and he attacked your decoy.
and he was on the decoy, swishing his tail,
Oh,
fixing to get him. And I hollered at Carl and I said, Carl, there's a mountain lion right by you. And he was probably, less than 50 yards from Carl, probably 25 yards. And Carl looked at me and he just kind of like, you know, get that pause, like, did I really hear what you just said? And then all of a sudden he realized that I was serious. And when he jumped up, this cat just had never seen Carl. And he just went, poof. You know how they do. There's just every hair on his body was just buzzed out. His tail was about 6 inches big around, and he was one scared kitty, and we were too. We packed up and got out of there, but it was like, oh my gosh, you know. Yeah, I feel like if the decoy hadn't been there, that he would have came in and he would have caught some
Snatched
kind of
Carl
movement
off.
from me or
He just he gone
Carl.
after the person calling. And
Yeah, he would have went after the person calling, exactly.
Yeah,
So,
interesting. Yeah.
but I've always really thought that was the way to go. I mean, you know, I've had lots of success with decoys.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
What were
even
you after?
even the old Iron Ass himself, Carl Gamage, he had a decoy in his
Oh yeah,
backpack all the
oh
time,
yeah,
man. I
all
mean,
the time.
Yep,
Mhm.
he always had one. We used them several times when I first started hunting with him 15 years ago.
Oh
And
yeah.
he'd put them out, even if he was going to sit in a ground blind on a waller, he'd put one of those Montana decoys out there and try to find him a soft spot in the ground to push it in, you know.
Right.
I've seen a herd of elk come run right by the thing, man. I mean, they
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
care. They just
Yeah.
come right by it, you know.
Yep.
So the other possible failure points, Danny, I saw some that you guys actually fixed on that, is that I was actually using a Montana one time and had the morning sun come up and silhouette me right through the decoy. And,
Oh my
I had a ball.
God.
We were trying to call into Chav, and I did the same
Had
thing. I
him.
brought it up, and I did a little bit of movement, and that doggone bull's coming up and coming closer, and all of a sudden he just stops, and he's like looking, and he kind of flares a little bit to the side, and he's looking, and I didn't realize till the guy said, "Yeah, look at this," and so we put it up, and with the sun back there, I'm perfectly silhouetted in there, moving and everything like that.
Like one of those silent movies.
Yeah. That double, you got
Yeah.
that black on the back of yours.
Yeah, I don't think that the sun goes through ours.
No,
And
It doesn't.
no.
Yeah, we've
you know,
tested that, so
the funny thing is, and one thing I'd like to tell people is that when I first started using these, I really thought that I needed to do everything right here.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I was trying to watch the whole show through here, and even trying to range, or like if I needed to look through my binos or something. And I've learned over the years, you absolutely don't have to do that. I literally am peaking right here to do all of my ranging. All of everything that I do is here. And the only time that I'm looking through here is when I'm actually trying to shoot him.
Yeah.
putting the pins
There's
on.
no defined movement. When they see the movement on the side, it's
Yeah.
almost like the animal's moving or there's other animals
Yep.
moving, right? They see the
Exactly.
small movements. So
I don't know what it is. I think that they're just so focused on
Mhm.
this that when you're down here, their
Mhm.
focus is up here. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And as long as you're not doing jumping jacks back here, you're fine.
we had two people. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
You know, we had myself and Gil, and Gil's a little wider than my decoy.
I'm big, dude. Yeah.
So,
Dude, that's the other question we get a lot of times is, do you make these things any bigger? Because I don't feel like this is big enough to cover me. And Josh Walker that we had out with that turkey decoy
Josh
yesterday
is a big boy. Yeah.
is 6'5", 285.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were having conversations, like moving. Oh, it was insane with turkeys. But you're right, Joe. Like you and Gilbert behind this thing, they're focusing on this up here, and you really don't have to worry if there's a little bit extra of you showing. There's one other thing that I wanted to show you, that a lot of times if I'm calling, if I'm not using a big full body decoy, what I'll do is I'll take our rump decoy and literally take these two that you can buy as a pair and flop that rump decoy on the cow and just Velcro them together with a couple of our straps. And now if I'm in the back and I'm calling and and I've gone through a bunch of these different scenarios,
Yep.
I can show him this if I need to, or I can go ahead and flip it over and show him this moving between a tree if I need to.
Yep.
And that's actually what I was running when we killed that bull that I was talking about my son killing last year.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you one more reason a lot of guys don't use a decoy
Yeah.
is I sat and watched these guys, man. It was hilarious. We have it on video. These guys trying to figure out how to fold one.
Oh yeah. Your mind, you lose your mind trying to get that thing back.
Oh my
And I do it in seconds. I mean, I put the head down, I go thumbs down, just like that, twist, fold, and it's together. And watching them try to do like all of these different things with it, it was hilarious.
And we've had some guys that, if you are listening out there and you have one that you've bent up because you tried to force it, there's a way to straighten that metal back out. You just contact us, through our website, or give us a call and we'll send you a video of how to straighten that thing back out. But I don't know why this folding these things is like riding a bike. The first time you do it, you can do it blindfolded and have it down in no time, but there are guys that struggle. And on our Instagram page, there is a video. It's the first video on that page that is pinned to the top that shows you an alternative method to folding that some people find a little bit easier.
Yeah, the
And
little head bottom twist,
well, you put her face down on the ground, right?
Mhm.
And you just bend her in half like this, make a C out of it. You don't have to crunch her down real crazy or anything. But then you come over to this other part, and all you do is take this metal piece and this metal piece, and you cross those two pieces. And that leaves you with kind of this loop looking thing on the front. All you do is, here, I got to try and show you this, is fold that down and underneath and push it down. And it's it folds down into 3 perfect little circles like that.
Yeah.
And it, like I said, it's hard for me to show right here on this, but
Yeah.
on our Instagram page, that first video will show you how to do it. And for some guys, it's a lot easier to use that method.
Man, I tell you what, it's no different than doing the window shade in your car.
Yeah.
It's the same
Yeah.
formula as that. So if you've had any of those metal window shades like that, just twist, push, and they're together. But I'm telling you, it was a lot of fun out there in the Elkwoods watching different guys try to do
I feel bad for them, man. We've supplied these. There's videos of how to do it on the
YouTube,
on the website and YouTube and all over the place.
Yes, sir.
And there's instructions that come with it, but for some reason they just can't get the right twist or something.
Right.
And yeah, all I would say is if you do struggle with it, go look at that other video. It's pinned
once
right
you
at the
do
top
it-
of the Instagram page.
Yeah, once you do it, you have it down, man.
Yeah.
So, hey, Danny.
But with elk, man, like the biggest point that I could make to people is I don't fold it up unless it's windy. I don't fold it up. I keep it on the dang bow. Find a way to flip it over on the side so that it's easier for you to carry it around and you're not carrying it up on the front of the bow.
Yes, sir.
Experiment with it. Make sure that you can still, fire an arrow with your method for how you're twisting it over on that quiver side. A lot of times I'll tuck part of the body behind the quiver, so she'll kind of be funny looking on the side of the bow, but she's still effective, and it just makes it a whole lot easier to travel and cover ground with.
Danny,
in case
do you use the orange pieces a lot? Do you
No,
use the
up here in
orange?
Colorado, I will run the orange on the
Gotcha.
either on the ears or the chest strap
Uh-huh.
when muzzle loaders are out in the woods with us if I'm on
Yeah.
public ground.
Oh, heck
And I get a lot of questions on, how does that affect them? And I'm like, well, have you ever seen a radio collared elk
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
with a, big red radio collar on it? Are all the other elk running from it?
No.
Yeah. Like, they don't, truth be told, a lot of times I just get rid of the ones on the ears and I use this chest one. That whether it's on the ears or on the chest, you can hide it if you want to. You can run it without the orange, but if you need it, you can flop it across there, and the elk don't seem to care about it at all.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, Danny, before we get out of here, is there anything that you would like to add? Tell people like where they can find Ultimate Predator decoys.
Sure. Ultimate Predator Gear is our website. It's just www.ultimatepredatorgear. The name of these decoys that attach to the bow is our Stalker decoy line. So these are called Stalker decoys. We've got a good YouTube channel that we've sorted out into different categories. If you're looking for elk hunting videos on that YouTube channel, you can look at a bunch of different 90% of our stuff is customer submitted video. We've run a program for a very long time where if somebody sends us video that we want to use for marketing purposes, we will send them a free decoy for submitting that video. It's been very effective for us. There's some guys that bought one decoy and now have almost our entire lineup just because they've whipped out their cell phone and used it, so many different times. But, like I was saying, for elk hunting, I want that thing on the bow. It may or may not come into play when I shoot the bull. Like I said, there's so many different times where bull was just walking past like we normally do using the same system we have for years. He never even saw the decoy and got zipped. But if he needs to see something, or if he catches you when you go to draw, or any of those other things, if you've got that thing on there, you're still in the game. You're still in the chips.
Absolutely.
Amen, brother.
Very cool.
Danny, we can't thank you enough, brother. These little tidbits that Danny's been going through and the ElkBros been throwing at everybody has been what's made us successful over the last 5 years, man. I mean, just about every bull we've killed, we've had either the Predator decoy on our bow or with us in combination. Like Joe and I were telling you, Danny, we went through I got to spend some time with my brother early in a hunt before the boys came in, and Chav at the time was sick, and so it was just me and Joe on the early season, and we called so many bulls in, just filming stuff, right, and just having a blast, and we were arguing about which one was going to kill a bull, you know. Not very often does that happen. I mean, we were just in them, and it was a special time where we were at. There were quite a few bulls there, but man, every one of them were duped. Every one of them, man, would have died that day if we just decided to start slinging arrows at all of them, you know. So it was really cool to watch the system in place of using y'all's decoy.
And I recommend people to go and watch those guys doing it with turkey, antelope, and watch the fun that is. Yeah.
There's so many different times where, you know, we've had a customer that literally said, I've been watching these things for 5 years and I've never done it. And, you know, they were kind of the opinion, I don't need that thing. It's just another piece of, you know, crap to carry around, another thing to go in my pack. They maybe had a bad experience with trying to stick a decoy up before and they couldn't get it into the ground or whatever, you know. And then they happened to be with a buddy that had one of these experiences where all of a sudden you had a bull that was duped and he wouldn't leave. Or he gave you 4 different chances to draw on him in his face or something. And then they're like, oh, I see it now. You know what I mean? And a lot of times that's what it takes, is the first time that you have one of those interactions where it's no doubt that without that decoy, that whatever just happened was not going to happen, you know. Then, you know, the light bulb comes on. I can just tell you right now, I mean, for me personally, part of the reason that I've been a kind of a decoy geek with elk and everything else is because for me, there's an additional thrill in fooling them to that level. And some of the experiences that I've had where animals were right, you know, part of the reason that we bow hunt is because, you know, our hunts begin where most rifle hunts end. You know what I mean?
Yes,
and
sir.
We get to see, we might not be as successful overall, but we get to have so many more in your face, close up experiences than most firearm hunters do. That's part of why we do what we do.
That's why we love
this thing is a tool that enhances it, in my opinion.
I agree.
And there's some times where I've just had these encounters that were just the coolest things that I've ever seen that wouldn't have happened without using a decoy. So that's part of why, you know, regardless whether you're using ours or somebody else's, it's just a fun way to hunt, man.
Yeah.
It's an extra charge that comes with it, you know?
Yep, for sure. RC, Chav, y'all got anything else to add? Anything else to ask Mr. Danny before we get out of here?
No, not really. You know, it's. I'll tell you what, you get to get up close and personal with the elk.
Yeah.
And they don't even know you're there.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But Danny, I appreciate you kind of going over this thing tonight, because I'm one of those guys that I've killed lots of elk. I don't need no stupid decoy.
Yeah.
and I've gotten one of these and struggled with it. I'm one of the guys that can't fold it up.
Me too.
I'm also one of the guys that put it on the front of the bow and didn't think about putting it on the side of the bow.
Yeah.
And, you know, trying to go through the brush or anything like that, it was a nightmare. And I'm going, man, this thing's more of a pain in the butt than it really worth, probably. I don't know. I haven't seen it work yet. But after listening to you tonight and giving these nice, awesome tips, I'm going, man, I can't wait to get mine back on my bow, and I'm going to try this, and it's going to work.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
There's
being with
2
us
attachment
tonight.
systems that will work for pivoting that thing. And it's really the strap attachment system is my favorite one to use. The spider wraps you can do it with as well, but a lot of times you have to loosen your wires and then pivot the thing. But if you experiment with those two and figure out on your rig, because every rig is different,
Right.
they're different lengths and everything, figure out which one you can pivot that with. A lot of people think that when you put it on the front of the bow that you want to lock it down tight. When you actually don't, you want that thing to be able to pivot a little bit, because if you do get a gust of wind, if it can move independently of the bow, it doesn't pull your bow around as bad.
Exactly.
And it also makes it easier to do that little pivot move to get it over on the side of your bow, because it's huge. Covering ground with it on the front of your bow in shooting position is a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And until you figure out how to pivot that thing over on the side, once you do, you'll be like, oh, this isn't bad at all. Now it's just like carrying my bow always has been.
That's awesome, man.
Yep, it is. It really is.
Yeah.
Fantastic information. Danny, can't thank you enough for joining us tonight. Guys, if you like what we're doing, please subscribe, rate, and review us. You got to go to Apple Podcast or iTunes to review us, and be sure to include your name and where you're from to get in our drawing on that Spin a Winner wheel. We'll be starting that up here pretty soon, and you can check out more elk hunting content at ElkBros.com. Also, guys, I'm going to put this out there. It's not in my script tonight, but I'm going to put it out there for all our listeners. If you're looking for an elk tag, Elk Bros is definitely an outfitter in New Mexico, and we have elk tags available. Look online at elkbrosadventures.com. Check us out. We got tags available for archery and rifle season. So we will try to meet your needs. Get in touch with myself, RC, Joe, Chav. We'll get you hooked up. And just a reminder, if any of our listeners would like their questions answered on our show, just send your questions to info@elkbros.com. That's info@elkbros.com. And like we say down here in the Lone Star State, husbands, kiss your wives, wives, kiss your husbands, hug your babies, keep your broadhead sharp and your powder dry. And we'll see you next week right here on Blue Collar Elk Hunting.
Peace, everybody.
Peace
Danny,
out.
thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you, Danny.
Work's been tough, and the days are dragging by. Nothing seems to go my way, and I'm ready to say goodbye to all of this garbage on TV. I believe I'm better off in the mountains peacefully, where the leaves are green and the air is nice and dry. Hit the forward button, man, it's almost time. Is it September yet? I'm all in. Flinging sticks in the high country, let the games begin. Is it September yet? My tank is full of gas. If you don't sign that leaf slip, boss man, I'm out of here. You're gonna kiss my ass. Is it September yet? Is it September yet? Summer goes fast. Yeah, fall is coming. We'll be here before you know it, man. While I'll be running and gunning. It's time to be savage, not average. When the old bull's screaming, the sun's coming over the ridge right now. All those canyons, they'll be singing. Is it September yet? I'm all in. Time to leave July behind me and make August a has-been. Is it September yet? I can't take this pain no more. Bugling bulls in the mountain air is what I'm living for. Is it September yet? Is it September yet? Oh yeah! dice. Gonna take it all in every morning and night. Play them big old bowls like an old Hank tune. When the shot is right, you know I'm gonna send it. Money in the bank shot, you know I'm gonna spend it all at once. I won't have no regrets. Is it September yet? Is it September?